Hey guys, I'm Kristen, and in today's video I'm going to go over some long-term food storage. So I'm going to show you my working pantry, my prepper pantry, and we're going to start with the food supply and what kind of things you can do to prepare foods so that they last long-term. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. Alright guys, so first and foremost I want to go over the amount of food that you should stock and where to start and maybe where you feel like you're at a good stopping point. But this isn't always an ongoing continuous thing. You're always going to want to be moving through your product, so you're rotating the newest to the back as you add to it and then eating the stuff in the front. That way you always know you have fresh stuff, and it's always good to experiment with your ingredients you have, and so that you know how to actually make something with these foods that you're storing when the power goes out or the grid goes down or any natural disaster for that matter. So it's always good to start out with a 2-week supply. FEMA says minimum of 3-day. That's really not enough. I went through Hurricane Michael last year, and I believe it was 18 days, no power. No power, no water, no nothing. So I recommend starting with 2 weeks supply for everyone in your household. And then you can build upon that. So after you get your 2 weeks and maybe you get another paycheck, then I would go ahead and start moving towards a 30-day food and water supply. It's obviously, I'm sure you all know, 1 gallon per person per day. And that also, you have to think about your pets. So that's 1 gallon per pet as well, especially if you have large animals. I have 2 large dogs, so if you have a smaller dog, maybe you don't need quite that much, but it's important that everyone stay hydrated, especially if it's summertime. I know here in Florida it's very hot and you need to stay hydrated. Eventually you can move that to a 3-month supply. So you're going to start at 2 weeks, then 30 days, and then 3 months. You can kind of get an idea if you start writing down, like write it in a notebook, what your family is eating, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, for say 1 week, 7 days. Just write it all down, and then you'll have an idea of the portion sizes and the things that you need to stock up on, so that you're eating things that you would normally eat. You don't want to stock up on things that you think, well, if I'm hungry enough, I'll eat it. Yeah, you probably will eventually, but it's not going to rotate through, and you're not going to be able to keep the stuff fresh, because you're not just gonna one Friday night decide, skip the steak, let's have Spam. So follow me on this. Eventually, I think that having a 1-year supply of food, eventually when you get there, like I said, just start small and keep building on it. Every time you go to the store, get 2 gallons of water, get an extra can of meat, get, a bag of flour, whatever it is, just continually add to it. There's lots of ways to store food for long-term food storage. I have a video on dry canning and water bath canning, and I do not have a canning machine. You don't have to have one. I can't think what they're called. I don't have one. You don't have to have one. So I will leave a link to that video above if you want to learn how to water bath can. And those generally last, depending on what's in it, and if it has a good seal, they can last 5-10 years. But I really recommend you rotate through and try to keep them under that. Let's see, you can freeze dry foods. You can vacuum pack foods and put them in your freezer. I'll show you guys that in a minute. I've got a bunch of stuff in my freezer here inside the house, and then I also have a deep freezer right outside my house. And it's important to keep meat products. You can freeze butter, you can freeze milk. There's all kinds of things you can freeze. And if you guys do a little more research or Google that, if you have any questions about that. There's lots of videos on it. And let's see what else. You can get either food grade buckets that have like a special seal on them that you can just literally dump the ingredients in, whether it's flour, rice, beans, lentils, whatever it is that you're saving, food storing. There's also a way you can do it where you can order Mylar bags that are specially made for food. They're food grade safe. And what you'll do with those is you fill them with the product that you're saving, and then you put an oxygen absorber in it. And then you seal that tight, and I believe you don't even need that machine that they say you need. People have said they've used their iron, they've used hair straighteners, I've heard all kinds of things. So there are ways around not spending a ton of money to get this stuff done. If you do the Mylar bags, you want to be sure to store them in a bucket and seal it. It doesn't have to be a food grade bucket if you're doing it this way, because the Mylar bags are actually what's going to keep the food good. But you really want it in a dark, cool place. So make sure you store all of your long-term food storage as much as possible in a cool, dark place. Of course, you can always just purchase already canned foods. There's canned meat, there's canned fruit, there's canned vegetables, there's canned milk, all kinds of things, you know. So the list goes on and on. I'm sure you've been to the store and seen the canned food aisle. I don't think I need to really go into that. Okay. I also have affiliate links for most of the products that I'm talking about. It's not going to cost you any more to click on that. It just helps me and my channel out. So, let's see. You definitely want to buy spices in bulk because food fatigue is a real thing. And if you're eating the same things every day over and over and over and they have the same flavor, you're going to get tired of it and you're not going to want to eat it. And that kind of like makes the morale go down. So, you know, having a bunch of different flavors and spices, you can use the same thing, whether it's a pasta or a bean or rice or whatever it is, and you can make it taste different. You can use it in so many different ways. So that's really important. And I'll show you guys my spices and my bulk spices here in just a minute. Let's see. I'm looking at my notes because I didn't want to forget anything. Okay. Comfort foods will also bring you some relief, boost your morale. And so things such as like chocolate or some favorite cereals. Like I said, you can freeze cereal. I promise you, look it up. Just some things that, you know, are special treats. You're not going to eat them all the time, but it's nice to have them around when everyone's feeling a little down. Another thing that would be good is, let me show you real quick. A lot of people buy the small little bouillon cubes, which I do have, or they get those liquid boxes of broth, and that's fine, but it's not as shelf stable, and it takes up a lot of room. So you can go on Amazon, just where I bought this, and nor any brand's fine, but makes this almost 8-pound container of bouillon. It's just strictly powder. You just go in there with a scoop and get it out. But it yields 75 gallons of broth, and it only takes up a little bit of space. I mean, it's like the size of a milk jug-ish. So that's another good tip. Another thing you definitely want to consider is cooking oils. What do you use to cook, and how are you going to be cooking? So if you have a charcoal or propane grill, obviously you're going to stock up on propane or gas, depending on what you've got, or charcoal, lighter fluid, that kind of thing. And then you need to get the appropriate cooking things you need to make that happen. So if you have a generator, then maybe you could run like a George Foreman grill or a crock pot from it. And so then you're going to need vegetable oil, which is, you know, great because it's cheap and it has a high smoke point, so you won't burn your stuff. You want to do shortening. I have canned butter, I have frozen butter, I have powdered butter, which I will show you guys in a minute. So all these things will be linked above in my, or below, or wherever. Somewhere, just look around. All right, so other things you might consider stocking up on would be honey. It is, if you buy the unfiltered, organic, all natural honey, preferably a locally sourced honey, that has a very long shelf life. It's great for sweetening things, and it's also good for allergies. It's got a lot of medicinal purposes. Cider vinegar, which can be used for cleaning, it can be used for canning, it can be used for all kinds of things. White distilled vinegar, salt, and I'll go over that in a second, baking powder, baking soda, flour, cornstarch, sugar, yeast. These are all things you need in order to cook or bake. Like I mentioned, shortening and stuff to flavor your food, whether it's soy sauce or ketchup or jams and jellies and whatever it is that you normally like to eat to season your food. I love Dale's steak seasoning, but probably not going to be having a lot of steak if it's a SHTF situation. Now the salts. You want to get a variety of salts. I have canning and pickling salt, pink Himalayan salt, iodized salt, and I have non-iodized salt. And I'm not going to go fully in detail about that, but you do need iodine, but then there are things that you want to use salt for that don't have iodine, and it actually is more shelf stable, so it's good to have a variety. Now, things that are good for, like I vacuum patch with my food saver, would be uncooked rice. And you always want to get the white, even though it doesn't have the nutritional value like the brown does. The brown rice only stays shelf stable for about 9 months because it has a lot of natural oils in it. So you want to definitely dry pack white rice. There's beans, lentils, oats, grits. I'm in the South, so gotta have some grits. Powdered items. So I have powdered milk, powdered eggs, powdered cheese, powdered tomato, powdered potato flakes, powdered bell peppers, and I get them all from Ogson Farms. I will link that below. It's a really great company, and from everything I've tried, they've been the best so far. And canned meats, so the Vienna sausage, the beanie weenies, SpaghettiOs with meatballs, hot dogs, and you can can a hot dog, but I don't know if that's really worth the time because they're so cheap. I would just freeze them, but you know, that's up to you. And ham, white chunk tuna, yellowfin tuna, salmon, anchovies, sardines, Spam, chicken, like the chicken of the seed. And then I've also canned bacon. I don't think I've made a video on that yet, so that'll be coming, but I will show you when I turn the camera around. So another thing that's important food-wise is to store some things that even if you don't personally use them yourself, that you can barter with. So one of the number one things that people barter when times are tough is liquor, and you want to get a pretty high proof liquor because it's pretty much got like a endless shelf life. Tobacco products, whether it's chew, dip, whatever you want to call it, cigarettes, whatever, those are great bartering items. Other good bartering items would be instant coffee, canned fruit, peanut butter, and speaking of fruit, if you don't buy it canned, you can always dehydrate your fruit, which is really good. I love like the dried peaches and apricots, but if you don't, you can always rehydrate them later when you're ready to eat them. Don't forget about water, like we talked about, 1 gallon per person per day, and don't forget your pets. But the water source, depending on where you're getting it from, is probably not filtered and probably not drinkable. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this, and I will leave links below to all of these things. There's something called a life straw, which is your cheapest, smallest source of filtering. Then there is, I can't ever remember the name. There's another medium-sized filtration system that's around $25. I will link that below. And then there's the Berkey water filtration system, which is the largest of them all. And I believe last time I priced it, it was around $200. They have several different versions, but I will link below the version that I recommend. If you have a well, which I do, you can buy solar powered pumps to get the water out. So it's a water source, but it's not necessarily going to be filtered. So you still probably need some kind of filtration system. But I'm not a doomsday prepper. I don't think the world's ending, but I don't think we're in a good place. So I think it's always best to be prepared. And if you continually rotating your foods and eating the ones that are getting older and put the fresh ones in the back, it's really not going to hurt you to go ahead and invest in some prepping food. The other thing you can do is rainwater storage. So you can, let me see, what did I put a note about that? Oh, so if you want to do rainwater collection, you need to get some rainwater buckets. And then you just need to be careful. You can do more research on this, but there are different kinds of like mesh kind of strain, I don't really know what they're called, but it has like a mesh cover. That way flies and mosquitoes don't get in there and lay eggs, because that will cause all kinds of gastrointestinal problems, bacteria, infection. It's not good. You don't want to do that. So I think that's all for me just talking to the camera. I'm going to turn it around and I'll show you my food storage prepper pantry. So, as I mentioned, having a variety of seasonings is super important, or spices, whatever you want to call them, to prevent food fatigue. So, I'm not going to go through all these. I'm sure you can see them. I've got also some things that I usually don't use. I have a small amount of them, just to try out new things, new flavors, just to keep it interesting. So, some of the things that I don't use very much would be caraway seed, cardamom, I think that's how you say it, celery seed, cloves, ginger, marjoram, nutmeg, pumpkin pie spice. The rest of those I pretty much use. Now these are just small ones. I have a few of the bulk spices that I'll show you, but I like this for just everyday cooking because they're in alphabetical order, so it's pretty easy to know if I have it or if I don't, instead of like searching through a cabinet, which I also have because I can't fit everything in here. But let's go ahead and move over and I'll show you the bulk seasoning. The bulk spices that I use often, I've got dark chili powder, onion powder, parsley flakes, Caribbean jerk seasoning, chicken seasoning, and I definitely need to get a large bulk container of garlic powder. Okay, and here you will see that I have the Oxen Farms that I was telling you about. I've got the powdered milk, which actually is from Kessler Foods because Oxen Farms was out, but they're back in stock on Amazon, and I'll leave that link below. I've got the cheese powder, tomato powder, butter powder, and dried whole egg powder. As you can see, I've got some stuff stocked up for the animals down here. So I've got a ton of dog food and cat food. And if you look here, I have all of my oils. So I've got canola oil, extra virgin olive oil, vegetable oil, my apple cider vinegar, and my white distilled vinegar. And if we bring the camera over here on this next shelf, you will see the salts that I mentioned. So I've got the all vegetable shortening, I've got some tahini, some ghee, the salts, so Himalayan pink, Mediterranean sea salt, iodized, kosher sea salt, pickling, and canning salt, and kosher salt. So, but I don't know if you guys can see these. I'm going to try here, but all of these boxes, and I know it's recommended to put them in bins, I just haven't got that far yet, but what I've done is taken some boxes that I got from orders I received from Amazon, and I put some food grade diatomaceous earth in them, so that if bugs do get attracted, not that they can get in the food, but I'd rather keep the bugs out. So they have diatomaceous earth in them, like I said, make sure it's food grade. And I've got this whole box on top is vacuum packed sugar. The next one down has vacuum packed quinoa, potatoes, steel cut oats, and I can't read what that other thing is. Can't even read my own writing. The one here on the bottom has vacuum packed flour, beans, pasta, cornmeal, cornstarch, and baking soda. And then the one over here to the left is full of rice. And it's a really large one, but it's hard to see because I've got other stuff stacked on it. I've got extra jars for canning. Next to my bulk spices, I have all my canning supplies, or most of them. I've got extra bands, lids, well, a lot of pectin, which is great for making jellies and jams, which I'm not really a big fan of, but I do love jalapeno hot pepper jelly. I don't know if you guys have ever had that. I think it might be a southern thing, but look up a recipe. Maybe one day I will make it and make a video for you guys. But for now, especially in the times we're in with hurricane season upon us and this pandemic and the election in November, I just want to focus on some other things, but we will get to that. Okay, so I don't know why I lost focus here. Let's see. I think my lighting is not so great. Okay. Anyway, next shelf is baking soda, the steel cut oats. I've got a huge thing of instant yeast, and I also have a lot of small packages of it. All kinds of pastas, linguine, mac and cheese, and then to the right, you start to see some of my food that I've canned. So right here is chicken stock that I made when I cooked a whole chicken, and I've got 2 of those, and as you can see, they're sealed tight. If you can lift them up like this, they're sealed tight, and I'm sure if you've canned, you know you don't leave the bands on because it can actually, if it's not sealed properly, cause botulism and ruin your food. If for some reason you don't get a proper seal, just eat it within like 10 days. Alright, so I've got split peas, navy beans, rice, on the hand. So let's see, I'll just give, what are they called? Like the baby red? I don't know. Can't remember. But I've got spaghetti sauce, tomato sauce, salsa, crushed tomatoes, diced tomatoes, Italian seasoned tomatoes. I've got pickled jalapenos, lots of hot pepper jelly, ghee that I made myself, which is basically clarified butter. And another tip, do not stack these on top of each other because it will actually, if these were to come loose, you wouldn't know, and you're ruining your food and wasting your money. Bacon's been really hard to find here, and if I do find it, it's ridiculously expensive. So this is not moisture, this is just a little bit of grease that came out of it after, but I dry canned this bacon. I've got 2 jars of it, 4 jars of ghee. I have canned cucumbers and put some spices in there to make my own pickles from the garden. This is the same thing, except for I've got some banana peppers in there, and I've got some okra, and I even canned potatoes. On these top 2 shelves, I have lots of evaporated milk, canned mushrooms, peas, mixed vegetables, olives, a little bit of beef broth. I also have some beef bouillon cubes. I am going to order a large beef bouillon container like I did for the chicken that I showed you earlier. And then I've got some canned meats. So I know this is kind of hard to see. I think it's because of that light. Anyway, I've got lots of canned tuna and chicken and sloppy joe mix, Vienna sausages, salmon, anchovies, sardines. These were on clearance for like $1. So yellowfin tuna and extra virgin olive oil, and it's already seasoned with sun-dried tomatoes, so I thought that was pretty cool. All kinds of different peas and beans, and then coming down here, a bunch of canned fruit, some, already made soups, some baking things, cornbread, more pasta. I've got several boxes. You can buy this, I don't know about where you live, but you can buy this at the dollar store. It's ready to eat. You have to refrigerate it after you open it, but it's a small pack, so you probably will use it right away, all of it, for $1. So I have 4 of those, more tomato sauce and tomato products, and I think that's it for my pantry. I will show you guys my other spice cabinet. It is a hot mess. I did not clean it or do anything to it, but I do want to show you. I do have more spices than that, but I just put the ones here on the door. I bought these shelves on Amazon that I store my, kind of regular, more day-to-day. Whoops. Man, I'm having some difficulties with this camera today. Okay, so anyway, those are more of the everyday spices I use, and like I said, I got those racks on Amazon. They were fairly cheap, so I'll link them below if you guys are interested. All right, so real quick, oh, I can't believe I'm showing you this. Here it is. Oh, all the other things that don't fit in there. So you're looking at just random stuff, but you know, some of it's too tall to fit on the shelves and whatnot. So that is that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and got some good tips and tricks. If you have any that I maybe didn't mention, please leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button, and then don't forget the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. I'm going to have another video coming up very soon about I need bloopers video. I can't talk today. I have another video about SHTF prepping that is non-food items. So check back for that. Until next time, I'll see y'all later.